The Arctic and the Antarctica are both covered in the ice, but what makes them different? Let's see it today. The ends of the Earth are similar in many ways. They both contain many large unexplored regions. And at the crux of the winter, there is complete darkness, and also only certain wildlife survive in such extreme weather. However, there are some similarities of these two regions of the world. So, here are some facts. In the Antarctica, the penguins are only seen in the Antarctica. While it may seem very counterintuitive, but given that Antarctica and the Arctic are both cold regions, penguins are absent from the Arctic. There are no land predators in the Antarctica, which means it's a bit easier for penguins to survive, including the Adelie penguin, emperor penguin, chinstrap penguin, and the Gentoo penguin, all types of penguins. The waters, however, are a very different story. The idea that the penguin are only found in Antarctica and not in the Arctic is rooted in the geographical distribution of the penguin species. Penguins are the flightless bird which have adapted to the life of the southern hemisphere, and the polar bears are only existing in the Arctic. These larger than life bears which roam in the north side in search of prey and habitat. The distribution of polar bears exclusively is in the Arctic rather than Antarctica, is a region that the polar region distinctly ecological and geographical characteristics. The polar bears are highly specialized marine mammals that have evolved to thrive in the Arctic environment. The polar bears have adapted to the sea environment ice of the Arctic Ocean, and it relies on it for hunting seals and traveling between ice floes. The Antarctica lacks that extensive sea ice habitat, which is crucial for polar bears. The Antarctica is a continent and the Arctic is an ocean. It is arguably the most significant difference between the two regions. The Antarctica is the southernmost continent on the Earth, which is surrounded by the Southern Ocean, and it is the fifth largest continent, and it contains about 70% of the world's fresh water, which is stored in the form of ice. The Antarctica is a landmass which is covered by thick ice sheet with an average elevation much higher than the Arctic's. It is geologically diverse, featuring mountain ranges, valleys, and the East Antarctic Plateau, which contains the highest point on the continent, which is Dome Argus. The Antarctica is also home to numerous glaciers and ice shelves. Conversely, the Arctic is not a landmass, it is an ocean rather, but surrounded by the land. The Arctic Ocean is the smallest and shallowest of the world's oceans. The Arctic Ocean is characterized by sea ice, which varies in extent seasonally. The Arctic Ocean is largely covered by floating ice, and its ice cover plays a crucial role in regulating global climate patterns. The Arctic region includes the ocean and the surrounding land areas, often referred to as Arctic Circle, where the landscape features many different things such as tundra, boreal forest, and the Arctic deserts itself. The Arctic and the Antarctic have opposite seasons because they are on the opposite sides of the world. The Arctic and the Antarctic do not share the same seasons. Therefore, you cannot travel to each destination during different times of the year. There is more diversity in flora in the Arctic than in the Antarctica. The flora in the Arctic and the Antarctic regions is adapted to the extreme polar climates, but there are notable differences between the two. The Arctic has very considerable flora with 900 flowering plants, with many different like Arctic poppies, saxifrages, Arctic willows, and many more. The tundra vegetation also includes low-growing plants such as mosses, lichens, and grasses. The Arctic plants have adapted to cope with the cold temperatures, but the Antarctica has very little vegetation. Primarily lichens, mosses, and algae. The Antarctic plants, particularly mosses, have evolved to survive extremely cold and dry conditions. They have adapted to absorb the moisture from the air itself, as the liquid water is very in scarcity in the Antarctica due to extreme conditions. The Antarctica has no population. Indigenous populations lives in Arctic, whereas Antarctica has no indigenous population. There are over 40 different ethnic groups living in Arctic, such as Inuit living in Alaska, northern Canada, and Greenland. But Antarctica has no one. You can see the wildlife species in Antarctica. Apart from penguins, you might find seabirds like a southern fulmar, Antarctic petrel, snow petrel, south polar squaw. Birds are essential components of Antarctic ecosystem. You can see various types of regional seals in Antarctica on ice floes and ice-covered shells. The southern ocean surrounding Antarctica is rich in marine life, and several whale species can be spotted, such as the common species of Menke whale orcas, which we also known as the killer whales, the humpback whale, and the blue whale. While these are not visible directly, krill are also tiny and shrimp-like food for the Antarctic food chain. So both regions have international claims over each area while there are ongoing disputes over sections of Arctic Ocean. The Arctic lands are intentionally recognized as belonging to the specific nations. Alaska belonging to US, Canada's Arctic regions are part of Canada. In Antarctica, 7 countries have made territorial claims. However, since 1961, the continent has been governed through a treaty system through which member nations collaborate on scientific and environmental protection initiatives.